And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Daisies and Dragons, where we're going to be discussing episode 4 of Miss Marvel, Seeing Red. A little pun there by the writers, because not only are people getting angry, but also there's the Red Daggers who are coming into play. We'll be discussing this and more in a bit, but allow me to throw to my beautiful co-hosts who will be discussing the show with me. Indrani, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, it is me, Indrani. I mean, hi, nice to be here. I'm excited to talk about Miss Marvel. The world's on fire, but this show has been like an anchor, like my weekly dose of just everything good has been Miss Marvel. So yeah, excited to get into Seeing Red. Chirag, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm Chirag. I've got the cup of tea. Life is good in the world, and we saw Miss Marvel episode 4. We got lots to talk about. So
Indeed.
I think I lost the rock paper scissors. That means I'm doing the recap.
Yes, tell us what happened in
If you
Seeing
haven't
Red.
seen Miss Marvel, stop watching this. Go watch it. But for everyone else,
Spoiler alerts.
Kamala managed to persuade her mum to take her to Karachi, in Pakistan, to go see her grandmother, find out what's going on, about the images of the train that she's seeing, and learn more about her heritage. As she does that, exploring Old Town in Karachi, she discovers the Red Daggers, which seems to be based super team, or sort of like a shield, but doesn't seem to be government based. And discovering more about where she comes from, until the Jinn, the clandestine, managed to escape out of the Supermax and make their way over there, and throw down. And at the final moment, is she in an illusion? Is she actually back in time? Who knows? But she ends up in partition, and it was what a journey we went on for the travel episode. And that's basically the short summary of what happened. And I think we can all agree this episode, it can't live up to the heights of the last episodes because it doesn't have Aunt Ruby.
This
It
is
does not have
that's an
Aunt
automatic
Ruby.
star out of the rating that I wouldn't have given it. So
I know. It cannot get a 5-star because there's no Anjali.
Yeah.
Sweet Anjali.
So that's problem number one. Indrani.
However, it
Yes.
sort of balances out with our boy
Farhan,
Farhan Akhtar of Rock On fame.
Okay,
showing up.
hold on.
Yeah.
That's insulting to on so many levels and misrepresentation, if
That's
anything.
how you want to know him?
Yeah. Okay. So to
That's how
those
you
who are
wanna remember
watching,
him?
no, you you
This
did
is
your
called
damage.
a bait.
Yes.
And
Hook, line, and
Shubham
sinker,
took
miss.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or you genuinely haven't seen Dil Chahta and I don't know which one's worse.
Of course, I've seen Dil Chahta Hai.
Okay, name 3 songs. I'm kidding. That's a bait. Come for me. This and the rest of the internet are apparently going to pass. Okay. So, yes, we don't have Aunt Ruby, but we do have Farhan Akhtar, who plays the leader of the Red Daggers. Farhan Akhtar, for those of you who don't know, is a Bollywood actor, writer, director, who has made numerous films, but one of the most famous ones is Rock On. However, one of the really underrated pieces of zeitgeist kind of capturing a slice of life is Dil Chahta Hai, which I highly recommend that all of you go watch, because if you want to see the life of 3 high upper middle class guys in Mumbai trying to figure out adulthood, this is a good adulthood and love. This is a good movie to watch. Tackles a lot of interesting issues, and this guy made this film in his early 20s, which kind of gives me a lot of identity crisis, but that's a different story. Farhan Akhtar is making a bunch of other stuff, but we'll come back to that later. Indrani, sorry, you were saying Farhan
His
Akhtar.
best piece of work is Rock On, and you spell that as ROCKONN, I believe. So, yeah.
I think he was good in Wazir.
Okay. You just
He's
I'm
good in a
gonna
lot of things, okay?
I run this. I have the control button on the stream, okay? So you
Right.
guys
End at his moment.
Let's talk about Miss Marvel before Shubham physically explodes.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
like opening thoughts. Shubham, how did you feel about the general episode? What were your highlights,
Uh,
takeaways?
Okay, I will try to be
Lemonas.
brief right now so that I can expound on things later. I'll be brief
That's
because
important.
I think here's what's happening. There are a lot of things I really like about Miss Marvel, right? I really like a lot of the authentic slices of culture and heritage that are captured. I also like the issues that it's trying to capture. I like that it's going into territory that most Western media, and for the last decade or so, Indian media has also not kind of touched upon. So that stuff I'm hyped by. However, I feel like the overall season plotting is lacking, which is the mystery of this Noor dimension and what's going on with the Jinn and what's exactly what. For example, for me right now, I'm not entirely sure what Kamala's goal is, except to figure out her past. But there's very little she can actually do except like if I was to write this as a plot, I would be like she goes here and asks someone, and then she gets chased, and then she goes here and asks someone, and then she gets chased, which doesn't make for very exciting or gripping television. The stuff around it is nice, but as a writer, I'm like, I think there could have been other instances where this could have been handled better. So yeah, that's where I am at with episode 4.
What about you, Chirag? How do you feel?
Yeah, so like a lot of the strengths of the first 3 episodes of Miss Marvel as a whole is, she's from Jersey, her family, her community, interacting with all that, and that's like a very strong bit. Like Bruno seeing Nadia, seeing how everyone reacts to her being Miss Marvel, like, oh, I'm a girl from Jersey. And then when you take it away from that, it's like you've taken away a lot of the strong points to like bring us into these worlds, new characters. Like it's not as strong, and it really doesn't really like help us figure out a little bit about Miss Marvel. Like the only members of her family we meet are her grandmother, who's great, and then her cousins, who are the absolute worst. Like who leaves a 16-year-old girl in a city where she heard is probably not as good, and just like randomly ditches her for like, I'm like, you left her in like not even the nice part, the modern looking part of Karachi you showed earlier. This is like old. I don't know what Old Town's supposed to be, but it's like it's not like a place you leave a 16-year-old American girl. It's a terrible. These are the worst cousins I've ever seen.
I have to agree on this. At the moment the cousins were like, "Oh, I guess we'll see you later." I'm like, "Wait, what? Who?" Not because Kamala can't take care of herself, but also like, this is the person you haven't seen for like a decade. You're their guide to a foreign country, and you were like, "Meh, figure it out," and left. And also, most of South Asia is notorious for not having great street directions. So unless you have Google Maps working, which they clearly show not working very well, okay, for whatever reason, you are screwed. And then Kamala's great plan is ask for directions, and that somehow works out which points. But
I mean, his Google Maps is great. Like that
Can
Steve
I-
Bennett's Google Map direction was
in
on
that
point.
in that whole scene, and obviously this is intentional, but the fact that she got ripped off for a Polaroid photo for 1,500 rupees.
how much is that in dollars though? Because that's the thing.
$15.
No, it doesn't matter. It's still a fucking
absurd.
I mean, she knows though. She knows that $1,500 is ridiculous for a Polaroid.
No. I know it's absurd. I'm just saying, as I was watching
Yeah.
it, I felt this fury in my chest, just like, and then like I was seeing red, and I couldn't focus on the rest of like everything that was going on for that moment, because I'm like, girl, do not give him 1,500 rupees.
I mean, in her mind,
did,
she's like, I'll give you. In her mind, she gave 1,500 for direction. I'm like, the guy would have done it for 2. Why are you giving him 15? What the fuck's up? It's because she had New Jersey on her shirt. No, only way it worked, he would have tried that.
And the accent, but also, I agree with all of the criticism so far. And I think the sort of standouts in the whole sequence of her getting to Karachi and whatnot, like couple of things that immediately stood out to me. I realized how conditioned I am to perceive like desi places in Western media. Like the lack of that yellow sepia filter was so refreshing, and I was like, it looks bright and vibrant, and it, like, as someone who lives in India, like, which is visually, I would assume, similar to Pakistan, I was like for a moment thrown off, and I'm like, no, what, and that was like a really good thing. And the second thing I loved the most was the term ABCD, which is American born confused desi, and the fact that she gets roasted by her cousins. Like, I agree, not the best cousins, and seems a little, especially for desi people to like be like, we'll leave. It seemed a bit out of place, but I love the way they just ABCD,
Quick
what a great
point
term.
of information:
Yeah.
the scenes in quote unquote Karachi are actually shot in Thailand
In Thailand,
and
yeah.
made to look like Karachi. They've still done a
Amazing.
pretty good job, and again, it speaks to how the colonial architecture has a tendency to be present in many South Asian countries, not just India or Pakistan. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the whole presentation of Karachi in the show, I thought was very
Mm.
like I didn't pick up that it wasn't Karachi. To be
Mm.
fair, I don't
Yeah.
know much about Karachi, but like it reminds me very much of streets that I've
Mm.
like seen in and around Mumbai.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Minus the
and
potholes. Or add the potholes because Mumbai's. That's what I'm trying to say. Is Mumbai's
yeah,
ones are worse than the ones we saw.
yeah. But so yeah, I really like the presentation
Mm.
of all the scenes and the color grading and all of that. I really enjoyed that.
Mm.
Um I I think it was nice that they showed Kamala's like she's fairly well off. Like her family seems to be living in a nice place. They go have a boat club that they go to.
Mm.
And the cousins seem all
Posh.
Which is at odds because her family are like very middle class. Her
I
mom didn't
think
have.
that's
Her father was
actually
struggling for work in America.
isn't
so.
that very much like
Yeah.
an like the American, like you still see like well off Indians be like, I'm gonna go make it in America. And like I've seen a lot of like people who
Yeah.
here live very well and go there to just like
Not only
struggle and
that,
make it
but
work. And
also if you have old money in say South, like India or Pakistan, you like that Haveli, like the mom says, it needs a fresh coat of paint. And that's the thing is you can have property in places that are old that imply a lot of wealth, but you don't necessarily live like luxurious lives. You'll still have access to the boathouse because as a grandmom, she would have gotten it for like $1,000 for a lifetime entry. Now, if she was to try get it, it would be like 10 lakhs. So that's $100,000 odd for who don't know lakhs. I think it's I can't remember. But yeah, so there's that thing is old money doesn't translate well to new money, and if you were to move to US, you would also struggle anyway.
yeah, I'm just saying like
Yeah,
leaving a life of comfort behind to
Yeah,
make it in Western countries is
yeah,
not like that unusual to me. I thought
yeah,
it made sense. But
yeah.
yeah,
yeah, but yeah,
l- l-
but
I
like
mean,
leaving the sorry, go see it.
no, please go on.
I'll moderate.
Yeah, that's
Chirag,
the
say
point.
your
Like,
thing.
so yeah, she like going on to the point that she left this life for comfort,
Yes.
and the reason why is because she was like getting, oh, mom, you had your crazy theories and all this kind of thing, and I want to leave. It's like I still don't know what exactly the grandmother was saying. Was the grandmother going around saying my mom was an alien? I don't know. I don't actually know why she was
Yeah.
kicked out. All we have is like, oh, your grandmother brought so much shame and like thing, but it's never actually said what the grandmother, not forget Aisha, the great grandmother. What did the grandmother do that was so
Mm.
appalling? Like
Mm.
I don't get what she did. There's no like conspiracy theories on the wall. I
Mm.
don't know
Yeah,
what was her thing.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
from
That,
what I picked up from it is her buying into Aisha's life and like all the sort of like the cosmic stuff that Aisha got up to, and like her y- you know this thing about like shunning
mm.
something because you, like if you don't shun something then you are one of the bad ones. Like
Mm.
earlier they deal with this in like the good Muslim bad Muslim thing, but here
Mm.
it's I think an extension of that. Like these things that Aisha did are taboo, and by
Mm.
the virtue of not shunning Aisha, she becomes
Mm.
just as bad. Do you know what I mean? And I
yeah,
get that. But
yeah, but they
again,
was like
I want to
saying,
see like yeah, obviously hyperbole, right? It's not like they're like, oh, she's a bad person, because like it's meant to
Mm.
sound much worse, because that's often how like you sort of like alienate and stigmatize people.
Mm.
So I got
yeah,
that.
but
One of my sorry, go on.
my point is like
Mm.
everyone is like, oh, they're angry at something the grandmother's
Mm.
done and after the grandmother's husband left her, but it's like it cannot be related to the mother because the mother died when she was 2 or 4 in partition.
Mm.
So like I still don't know what there's like a there's like the show is not telling us enough to understand
Yeah.
what we it's like we have to guess and infer when it's like it's not like, oh, she has like crazy conspiracies or like things on the wall or like anything in the house indicated there was anything weird about her except for the toffee, which was endearing, but there was nothing in there that made it clear why is this woman so why what was this woman's theories that drove her away or made people be this concern. And I feel like it's not telling us what that is,
it
and it's
very
trying to
much
make us
that
fill in
sort
the
of
gap.
like where they're saying something but we're not seeing it be true?
They're not
it
even
like
saying it. They're not saying what it is. They're not saying
No, they're saying that
is a
she's
conspiracy.
bad and like this and that, but we can't
No, so
tell
if I
why
may chime
that
in
is.
over
Is there
here,
a term
if I
for
may
this?
chime in, I think what Chirag is getting at is that usually by this point, 4 episodes out of a 6-part series, you would have a very clear idea of you would be entering the last stages of your act where you would be getting into these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, this is the stuff that happened in the past, and this is how you can possibly save yourself from the situation, right? So yes,
There's only 6 episodes?
Yes, there's only 6 episodes. We have 2 more left to go.
Okay, now all of that feels like okay.
Yeah, okay, so you get my pacing, it feels very off. Yeah. So
100%.
and then the other thing is, so not only would you have this information, but this information is clearly relevant because all the characters are asking for it, right? Like Kamala's like, what was the thing that was the problem, Nani? Why did I see the train? What does it mean? And you only get mysterious responses which work from particularly mysterious characters, but not from people who have always wanted to speak the truth, which is like the Nani, is on record as the crazy lady who would always say the weird things. Okay, now's your chance. Tell us what the crazy things were, right? It's almost weird that Farhan Akhtar did the explanation on the Noor dimension instead of the Dadi. It's like, oh, my mom told me about the Noor dimension and any of these things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like she said, like, oh, my dad said that she was Jinn, and like, what else did the father say? Like, there should be more information. Like, that was one line, and you're not even like saying, oh, I see. Sometimes I get these visions, or I've used. We don't know what the grandmother's done. They just kind of skipped over and go have fun with your cousins.
In fact, that asks me a question. Reminds me, how did the Nani see the train? Why did she get the vision? She doesn't have the bangle. Is it the whole bloodline? Is it all the jinns? So you see basically the issue is becoming that I don't understand how the magic works, and therefore I'm not sure how you can. And in fact, oh man, I can't believe I get to do this on stream. Sanderson's first law, of magic explains that your audience's ability to resolve a story with magic is directly dependent on how well your audience understands that magic. Right now, I know very little about how the magic of this dimension and the bangle and works and what are the different threads that I need to be following. I just know there are various factions and some of them want to go back, and maybe if they go back, they will unleash the dimension. But that only got explained now, and even now I'm not entirely sure what that takes. If I had hints of like what would it look if Kamala was to make a real stand, I would maybe be able to gauge progression better, right? I feel as in the dark as Kamala is, and I shouldn't because Kamala's been asking a lot of good questions.
100% agreed.
Do you feel that the show's not managing the balance of drip feeding information for the mystery? They're not managing the drip very well.
Yeah, as Salwar asks, yeah, definitely. I'm on that. I think it started off really well. I was like, great, establish the world, establish the setting, establish the characters. It's okay if you bring in the magic a little bit later, because that way I'll care when this world is ripped with, conflict. And now I'm like, okay, but you are really running out of time. And I don't want to be sitting through an explanation while there should be a cool fight scene happening or a cool resolution happening. And to be fair, so devil's advocate, and I'll kind of throw you. But to be fair, I think this is a problem that Marvel is learning to figure out, because if you look at the more successful shows in terms of what they managed to pull off in terms of story in a series, right? So Winter Soldier, WandaVision, to an extent Loki, though I'm still not crazy about Loki. They were able to do this because there was already a lot of existing lore that they were able to pull on. Whereas Moon Knight and Miss Marvel both struggle with, let us establish magic world lore and also establish story and all of this in a short series. And it's not the same as a movie, and I think they're trying to break a movie script up into a series script, and they've not quite figured out how to do that yet.
Yeah. I think for me, the show has like offered a lot of like story and pacing wise. I think I defer to both of you in terms of like your. I make that makes a lot more sense considering there's only 6 episodes. What?
No.
Give me more, first of all. But like that, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. No. Yeah, okay. If there was more time to explain these things, and obviously, why only 6 episodes? I get it, but
I mean,
okay.
there's probably reasons, funding and everything, all of that. But
Yeah.
They want to get it done enough in time for Marvels.
Yeah.
I guess.
All right, she's probably gonna win, which would be cool. That pacing
Yeah.
wise, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
One of the things I did really enjoy was the characters in and around like Kamala, even in Karachi, like the people she meets. Let's talk about the Red Daggers, is what I'm getting to. Like,
Right.
What do you think about sort of the world building of like a comic book Earth outside of like America?
I like that. That's cool. I like. We saw a little bit of London, like in Moon Knight, but we don't really see how other parts of the thing besides Wakanda deal with superhumans. Like when Endgame happened, and like Thanos invaded, like only American superheroes showed up. Besides Scarlet Witch and Black Panther's crew. So it's just like, what are the other superheroes like? And it's clear, like the Red Dagger guy, he has opinions about America. It's like, oh, why do you all wear masks and that kind of stuff? But it's like we don't really know. We don't really know what they're like. Russia has one superhuman besides the Black Widow. Yeah, they have the guy from Stranger Things.
Yes.
Alexei, I think is his name.
Captain Russia? No.
It's
something.
not.
You guys are just making this worse. Go on.
I don't even know.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And yeah, what's it called? But it's like it'd be nice to know what other superheroes in the world are like. It'd be nice to spit out because Marvel does have a lot of that. And yeah, the Red Dagger guy was very cool. I liked. He had like good banter. I liked his moves. They were good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like it would be nice to see more of the world. Like what's been happening? Have superheroes been busy for the last 5 years? And once again, we do not answer the question: was Miss Marvel blipped? We don't know. I'm going to keep asking that every year.
Yeah.
Every time.
Which is a strange thing to not cover because, like, considering how big of an event it must have been for like everybody in that world. So, yeah.
No, go on.
I wonder if this is more of an effort to like create like a self-contained thing. I mean, they've done a decent job in that the others exist. There was fucking Avenger Con, which, so like knowing that you can talk about like the extended world in this way, I don't understand how such a core element of like, I assume every single Marvel property based after Infinity War should in some way or form touch upon. Yeah, it's very strange. But
I'm trying to think of, there was Multiverse, there was No Way Home. What was the other film that came out that was of Marvel?
Doctor Strange 2?
No, that's Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse.
And
is
there another one?
Spider-Man was
Oh, Eternals. Eternals was the other
one.
Yeah.
Love and Thunder.
And I think Eternals was one of the first ones that didn't directly like it referenced Thanos, but it was its own world. And it expanded on the world in other parts of Marvel that we hadn't seen before. And I found that part of Eternals refreshing because it was good to move away from the Avengers. And I'm okay with Marvel doing that as well. I'm okay for you to move away from the Avengers and, explore other things. It's like you said, it just feels odd to not mention something that would be so integral to their existence. And secondly, I almost worry that in the hopes of covering a lot of ground, by ground I mean literal ground, like they went from Jersey to Karachi, right? They have perhaps stretched the story thin. It's odd because I feel like instead of 6 episodes, I know 6 episodes feels like too little, but I would have almost kind of gone, well, could this not have been done in 4 episodes? Because if you remove all the parts where everyone's constantly confused and not answering questions, we would be cutting through it a lot faster, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, if I may, just the first time where she saves the kid from falling off the mosque, that would be the end of Act 1, and we would dive right into Act 2, and it would be like, okay, damage controls coming in, the Jinn are coming in, you move from the other, you get to the other. Then that pacing was working, and then it just scattered because they were like, okay, now we need them to go have normal lives again. And I was like, no, but one of the reasons why Spider-Man's duality of student and superhero works is because at some point they go, the student life's going to get sacrificed and the superhero life's going to wreck everything, but he will save the day, right? And it feels like they're focusing so much on Kamala as the person who, I will say this, extremely charming character, right? Every scene that Kamala is on, I am charmed. I am thoroughly glued to her expressions, to the way she quips, and I want to see Miss Marvel and Spider-Man quip at each other. That will be, it will be so entertaining. I'm there for that. But it feels like she's in fact the only thing holding the scene up because everyone else is mostly. I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It feels like when I am running a game, I'm the DM, and I haven't figured out a piece of lore. So I'm just throwing blanks at my players, kind of going, oh, you don't quite know this, but mysterious information. And I'm like, I just have to figure it out yet. I don't know. So I'll just stretch it out a bit further. And that's what
if
it feels like.
If you're watching our mask game, let us know. Send clips of where you can see that happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree. Selva has another question. Should the show lower the stakes of the main conflict than to allow for a more detailed exploration of the characters? Wow, that I struggled to read that for some reason. My brain could not read, but I'm just gonna copy and paste it into chat.
I know we can see it. I can see it. I don't think Chirag can.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that statement. Because that's what I was thinking this whole time. Again, my opinion might change after the next 2 episodes. Next 2 episodes might be brilliant. But it feels like figure out who she is, her whole thing, how is a brown girl from Jersey gonna do, gonna save the world. So I thought that was the main premise. Okay, figure out what is Jersey like. What's it like being a brown girl from Jersey? Figuring out that. Take advantage of your great cast of people in Jersey, your school, Bruno, Nadia, your family, doing all that. And take advantage of that and deal with a problem there. There is a very clear problem. Damage control. They are there. They are a big problem. And you can deal with that kind of issue. And then if there would be a season 2 or something, you'd be like, okay, there's a bigger trouble. There's the Jin part of me, where this is my past. Understand yourself, understand where you come from, season 2, and then understand where you're going for the Marvels movie. But it's you try to squish it all together, and I don't know what's gonna it feels like it's kind of rushed, so we got incomplete bits of it. And it just feels like they wanted to tell. If they could have just said you're going to get 2 seasons. Loki got 2 seasons. If they were you are going to get 2 seasons, it's going to be fine. Focus on the Jersey stuff, and it'll be. But it's they just didn't know. They didn't have content they were going to be able to tell all the stories they wanted to tell. So they just told every story.
I think a great example, because I'll say of all the series that have come out so far, WandaVision ranks the highest for me. Personally, I think it's the best use of. It's the best marriage of structure, plot, theme, tone, and suiting the story itself. So I'll again quick divergence here. But so you have story, which is what's going on, and then you have plot, which is the events that happen to keep the momentum going, right? And then you have theme and tone, which is kind of the dressing on how you treat this thing. If you think of it as a car, the story is the plot is the engine, the story is the fuel, and then the theme and tone are the fancy way the car looks, and the characters are the people driving it, right?
I would add that we need to also consider the medium, which would be the road.
Yeah.
If you're designed for the road.
Yeah, is it a road car or a street car? Exactly, right?
Yeah, the WandaVision is designed for TV more than any of the other shows.
Yes.
I think it does it really nicely.
Yeah, it's designed.
Winter Soldier feels like a movie split into 6 parts.
Exactly. And so you see this happen more and more as you go further with the series, where WandaVision does such a good job that then eventually get to Moon Knight, and Miss Marvel both do this thing where they're okay, now we're going to go to the authentic location, which is Egypt or Karachi. And on one side, of course, I'm happy that you're representing, but it feels like you spend so much in a movie. You wouldn't do this so late into a season, right? If you were jumping locations in a movie, you would have established it 40 minutes, 50 minutes in. 1 hour, 30 minutes, and you introduce a brand new location, and at the same time, a whole new range of characters. That leaves the audience grasping. It leaves them confused as to who should they be focusing on. we got a new character, Farhan Akhtar's character, whose name, by the way, I've forgotten.
Walid.
Walid, right? And he dies, and I don't have time to care because he was there. But imagine if they had kept this in Jersey, and if Bruno got a scratch, we would riot. Okay, so
He did get a scratch. He got his
and Kamla got pissed, right? So it just it's very much what Chirag was saying, and kind of just adding to that is that it's trying to do a lot, and I appreciate the effort, but unfortunately, it's not quite hitting the mark right now. It might be saved by the finale. I hope it is, but it's a tall order. At the same time, this does not make it a bad show. It is the burden of most pieces of written work to struggle this balancing act between these different aspects, right? Very like the fact that Disney plus Marvel, with all their resources, have put out I don't know how many series now so far, 6 series, 5 series.
Whatever.
And of that, only one has ranked a perfect merger for me, WandaVision in this case, shows how difficult it is. So it's not like, oh, this is bad. It's just, we know that it can be better. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think,
I think
there's also something to be said about the fact that like Marvel, Disney or Marvel, whatever, have spent some time perfecting. People call it the Marvel formula, sure, whatever. There is a way they do things in film that consistently hits certain beats, and you're used to that caliber of storytelling or that caliber of like, oh, I know what to expect from a Marvel story.
Yeah.
So because here it almost feels like they're back to figuring it out a little bit. And I think the sad part is, right, the figuring out is happening with, I would say, like some of the most crucial characters they're bringing into the fold, largely because it's these are stories of people of color, right? So people are already like more fine-tuned to be like I'm ready to pick out whatever's wrong about this show and use that as a justification for other things.
Yeah.
So there's that. And I think weirdly, like as a person of color, I feel like I am also more critical of art that gets put out by my people. Like I am like, I see people like in the States who are freaking out about RRR, the Rajmouli film.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
And I remember my first reaction to seeing the trailers, because
We
God
laughed.
knows
We
every
laughed
time
really hard.
Yeah. We don't see the charm that other people do, because we're expecting it to hit, like, do you know what I mean? We're like really critical of the
So not only if you gotta get finish your thing, because I have a thing to say about this.
Not that it's bad criticism, it's good, but like there's just so much pressure on the people making these shows, because often like it's people of color who are making these shows, but also like giving them more resources and these kind of shows not being the experimental phases, I wish was a thing, because if it doesn't work, then be like, well, we tried. I
think that's definitely a valid concern, because we have seen it happen in the past. I hope it doesn't happen here. Considering that Miss Marvel's already slated to return for a film, I think we're somewhat good there. But you raised a very good point about the how they see audiences or just people of color from the diaspora around the world react, as opposed to people from within the country would react. And I feel like this is particularly true because we've seen this happen time and again, right? You see the Hollywood adapting a lot of anime and manga, and it getting like criticized for whitewashing and just poor understanding of the cultural nuance and stuff like that. And those criticisms are valid, but they're specifically coming from, say, in the case of anime, Japanese Americans, right? People from that second, third generation Japanese people who have lived in America, right? Whereas if you ask people in Japan, what did they think of Ghost in the Shell and Scarlett Johansson? They're like, yeah, whatever. I mean, we have our original. We don't care what you guys do with your adaptation. It's cool that you guys are so into our culture, but whatever, right? So there's that dichotomy, which is representation for, say, Indian Americans in American media is important, because that's something that rarely ever happens. Representation for Indians in American media do I have you guys? Both of you seem to be
Yes.
okay. It's okay if I went off on a tangent. You can pull me back.
You did, but that's fine. Go on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Just remember, these are Miss Marvel's crew. They're not Indian. They're Pakistani.
Sure. In this case, I'm simply referring Indian as in Desi. Like, let's say pre-partition British India. Fine.
Just say Desi.
Sure.
Desi covers all everybody.
Fair. In case that wasn't clear, there you go.
Yeah.
So point being that the expectations of people, say Desi people from within the country, is very different when watching this stuff. This feels particularly true when we watch something like RRR, where if I watch it, I'm like, this is another over-the-top film that is warping relevant history and catering in a way that doesn't make me feel more inspired or motivated as a person in this country. Because, for example, RRR is dealing with two figures from Indian history, right? But it's obviously turning them into more fantastical beings. And the most famous song that's come out of it has them doing this whole dance number amidst white people, like British people, partying, and then eventually the British women get interested and they dance as well, and then the men are like competing. And here's the thing, when I see that, I'm going, oh great, another thing where I'm trying to impress white people with my dance skills and my culture. That doesn't feel great for me, because that's what I feel like all my culture seems to be doing, is there to kind of amuse and be there as this exotic oriental thing, all of that in inverted commas. Whereas when it's viewed by Indian Americans, they're like, oh, that is so cool. And it is cool if you haven't, if you aren't dealing with it being the 100th time you've seen this, because RR is the only film you've seen maybe come out this year.
I mean, yeah, RR is like a specific example I used, but I'm just talking about the general sort of like critique we have towards homemade, like homegrown media, right? Which seem like my point was more to do with like the sort of like how tuned in we are to like everything that might be wrong with something. And I think like people of color just making things by virtue of it being made by people of color has a layer of like extra scrutiny towards it. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair.
It's like, I can feel like the pressure on them. It's like, we're not going to get anything else this year, so you better do it. We might not get anything next 10. It's like, that's probably what how the Crazy Rich Asian crew felt, when they're like, oh shit, they're not going to get another Asian film for another 12 years if we mess this up. And they're like, everyone was like, I'm sure everyone who was like for that demographic, they're like, oh, this better be good. And it was. So I feel that's how we're like feeling. Like, oh, we're not going to get another Dusty superhero show with a Daisy protagonist and a lovable crew. If this messes up, we were lucky to get Kingo. We're like, oh,
that's the thing. It's always people being like, we're lucky this is our only shot, so we must make sure it is the best. And if there's anything wrong with it, then like it falls on us. And that sucks. But at the same time, all valid criticism. So there's that. I want to go back to like Miss Marvel, the show specifically, and talk about the Lal Khanjir, the Red Dagger. I like that they expanded. So in the comics, it's just it's Kareem, the young kid that she meets. In here, they've like expanded it to be more of like this like covert organization. And I just love that sort of like world building that they're doing. It makes the rest of the world feel more lived in, as opposed to just a backdrop for the superheroes to pop in and out of for specific missions. So I really enjoyed that. But I agree. I feel like if they'd established these things before, like I didn't feel the impact of Waleed's death. The whole time I was watching, me and my partner were watching together, and anytime like anything would happen to Farhan Akhtar's character, I'd be like, oh no, Farhan Akhtar, and he's like, Indrani, stop it.
My mom felt the same way. My mom was like, I cannot believe you killed Farhan Akhtar. How could you do it? Like, so good. Like, mom would be lucky to have it. And she's like, she was very upset when it happened. Like, mom, one, maybe he was busy, made him want to, and two, it's the Marvel Universe. He could be cloned. He could come back. We don't know. There's literally time travel in this episode.
I'm sure like
Pakistani better.
Chirag brings up an important point, and I think this might be the last one we get to discuss today.
We should talk about the partition.
Yes, which is what I'm bringing us to. Is the fact that this episode ends with us Kamala time jumping to the partition, which is, I didn't expect them to go that far with how much they engage the partition, because that's a very, very bloody part of our history. And trying to tackle that is interesting, especially on a Disney show. I have no idea also what the tie-in is exactly going to be. Like, yes, the thematic tie-in makes sense, but what are you going to be doing here, and what does Kamala get from the past, and does this mean that she can now time travel? Does this fuck with the time stone? That's a whole different Marvel thing that we need to figure out.
The time stone doesn't exist anymore, but in this world. But
I mean, it's more likely that this is where her grandmother lost her dad, had to follow a sea of stars, which probably means it's a loop. Kamala creates the sea of stars and leads her there, and it's probably the reason why Aisha is not around at this point. I presume Aisha disappears the same time Kamala's there.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Oh, I didn't think of that. I just thought of this as one of those like visions that she's been having, just like her fully being. It's like Dalinar Colin's visions, but like you know what I mean, where he starts to like experience it.
Sure,
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I thought that maybe, but then she's like literally pushing past people. I'm like, oh, this is a closed time loop thing. Like, because of her actions, her grandmother makes to make it on the train and gets to Karachi.
And they have pointed out that she looks a lot like her great grandmother.
Does she?
They mentioned that you have like her, I don't know, something eyes. They always say eyes or something like that. But you get what I'm saying?
Oh, it's the eyes.
Just
brown, dude. There's nothing special about it.
Her eyes turn purple. That's the
interesting.
That's the great grandmother.
Yeah. Plot aside, like I'm curious to see how they resolve it. Only 2 episodes to go, but I'm also genuine, because here's the thing: the partition resulted in an insane number of deaths, and those train scenes are very provocative because you can see there's people who are literally just making a rush, right? And they're throwing their bags up and hoping that someone catches it, and then just climbing aboard. And this train is now going to take them to whatever lies across the border, because they don't know where they're going. They're just going to try to get across. And the whole time, religious tensions are rising insanely high, and violence is breaking in multiple places. So I'm not sure how they're going to do this, because here's the thing. I feel like there's a level of Okay, I'll tone it down. There's a level of responsibility when depicting history, even if it's a fantasy version of that history, to not stray from the reality of the situation. Doctor Who does this really well, where they show the partition and they make a clear reference to the violence and the lives lost. Okay, and I think if we have Kamala surviving, going through this thing, and it shouldn't be a Disney version of the Pepsi ad, basically, where she kind of creates a moment of peace, because that's just it strays too far from the enormity of what she has thrown herself into, right? She could have stopped the conflict in Jersey City. This is beyond just
Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think from what I've seen so far with the way they've handled the partition, obviously there's that thematic sort of like losing your home, being ripped away from your home and whatnot, but the way they handle the actual discussions in and around the partition itself, like whether it be that dinner table conversation her family has, or like the actual sequence we see, I think the writers have done a good job of portraying it, and their writers are people whose families were in some way or
well, like probably we're not sure, but more probably
like I think, at least from what I've seen so far, I trust the show to handle it well. But if they Disneyfy the partition,
that would be really problematic. That's like Disneyfying. Just there's some things you don't.
How long do you think they're going to spend for episode 5 in the past? Do you think they'll spend the entire episode? I hope they don't spend the entire episode, because you've got a lot to do.
Yeah.
We don't even know how Bruno is, how Nadia. We've got to get back to Jersey. We got to save the day.
It's interesting. Because you're right. It's interesting. Like it's a twofold thing, right? A, you don't want to Disneyfy it or make it too like, just like swoosh of my hands and I, temporary piece or whatever. But at the same time, I also don't want them to just use it as a backdrop.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it has to, like, again, it's that thing of like it needing to have enough significance for it to be present, but also not being like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like Chirag's suggestion, and I'm guessing that's where the writers will go, where Kamala will be able to affect her personal history, but not the
Yeah.
history of everyone in the community, which would be a fair middle ground to find.
yeah.
That would be unlikely, given even there's a lot of people
I mean,
on the
it
train, but it's not like
happened.
it's not everyone going to Karachi. It's not
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
There was earlier trains, but
Yeah.
no, it's just going to be
One-
her grandmother.
I think
Final
that-
thoughts, just before you guys continue. Final thoughts, Indrani.
my final thoughts, again, it's about the same scene,
Yeah.
is that obviously they gave people subtitles for some of the more louder sort of like conversations that were happening at the train station. But like if you go back and just like listen to the other softer non-subtitled like things that were being said in Hindi, it was also really fascinating to just like, yeah, I thought like I was just like a little stunned watching it. I've never seen like the partition be depicted on media, like at least
American media or
American
Western
media, or even like current gen Indian media.
Sure.
Like I don't know if there's any.
we had a massive amount of it made way before. And I don't mean this in a condescending way, before you were born. But after that, it really did taper out, and it's
that's
unfortunate.
what I'm saying. Like there is no like. On the other hand, there's a lot of like propaganda films that are coming out here, which is like, oh, Indian Army this and that, and like, so it was, it felt really impactful. But yeah, that's me.
Chirag.
For episode 4.
I'm a little annoyed in Disney Plus that when you go into the subtitles and people are speaking in Urdu, it says said in Hindi, which is like, why would you do that? That's a big mistake for Disney to do. I don't know why the heck they did that.
Interesting. I actually wonder, because the problem with Hindi is that it's a pidgin language, so it often has Urdu words.
But they did that in modern Karachi. It's not like they did in the past. Like in modern Karachi, they're speaking Urdu, and the subtitle says in Hindi. They said this, and like that's. Not
I feel like the thing is they weren't. I don't think they were speaking Urdu. I think, as far as I understood, they were speaking Hindi. They were speaking.
In modern Karachi.
I mean, I understood it because they were speaking Hindi. Urdu sounds different. So I think it's
its own language. So the sentences that were being said. Now I don't know if, again, I have no expertise in this. I don't know what the regular language used there is, but whatever was being said,
that was Hindi.
Used Hindi like sentence structure and not Urdu sentence. So like the subtitles weren't mislabeled. I don't know if the language to be used is correct or not. But
they probably should have gone with Urdu or whatever is appropriate for the setting. But I don't know about that.
Anyway, the action in this one was much better than episode 3. I don't like the action when they actually were fighting.
It helps to cover up the face. Once you cover up the face, you can get the stunt actors in.
Yeah, it was very good action. I really like the action scene. Those were good. Don't know. Still not a big fan of clandestines. They're not the best villains we've ever had. They're not great. But the action was very good.
Yeah, Kamran just got left shanked by his mom. But we will discuss that and other parental trauma next episode. So take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the 5th episode of Miss Marvel. Bye-bye. Stay cosmic.
Bye.